I'm Steve Stahl, or Stephen M. Stahl. I'm a professor at the University of California in San Diego in psychiatry. I edit one of the journals, actually one of the Cambridge journals, CNS Spectrums. I'm director of the psychopharmacology services for the state hospitals in the state of California. I'm also an honorary fellow at Cambridge. My approach to teaching is to try to simplify, and I'm a visual learner. And I learned that I learn by seeing things, sort of in my mind's eye, maybe with a raw sketch of a very simple nature. And it wasn't long before I discovered that many other people do as well. And so sometimes if you can see it, then you can understand it. And I use a lot of pictures, cartoons, icons in my teaching. The teaching method I use kind of has a very simple way of looking at it. Say what you're going to say it, and then say what you said. And sometimes you say what you're going to say by objectives that are bullet points that are very brief. Then you say it by really teaching the story. And one of the ways to say what you said is by audio-visual, multimedia, and whimsy, humor, things that are plays on modern kinds of media that people see, and it's quite enjoyable. And the idea is if you can make someone laugh a bit while they're repeating material that is quite serious in many ways, that sometimes helps cement it. I've had 20 years now, almost, of working on various books with Cambridge University Press. Started with the first edition of the textbooks, Essential Psychopharmacology. Now that is now in 4 editions. That book kind of tells you what's wrong with the brain in psychiatric disorders. It kind of tells you how the various drugs that we use work in psychiatric disorders. And after a while that spawned a spin-off, and that was the Prescriber's Guide. And that actually tells you how to use the drugs in a practical way, dosing and kind of a bedside manual. In addition, there's been, I think now close to 40 different books that we've done on psychopharmacology that are spin-offs. So up to 40 things over 20 years. I originally chose Cambridge University Press because they had international reach, language translations, the ability to think of the world rather than just a part of the world. But quite frankly, one of the biggest reasons I chose it was because they could think outside the box. Now, you might say that an old, stodgy press of hundreds of years old can't do that, but I didn't find that to be the case. The best example was that I asked Cambridge to do a full-color book at a time when that was very outside the box and really expensive. And I said I didn't want it in a hardback, I wanted it in a paperback. That's also not traditional because of the way in which sales and pricing is done. But they were able to come out immediately with a paperback from the get-go, 4-color all the way through the book, and they took a huge risk on that. Then we had spin-offs. They knew markets well. They were able to help me, speak to those markets, test those markets, and most recently we've gone into the digital environment. Very challenging in many ways. The publishing's under a lot of pressure. People don't know that books are going to survive. Journals are already in print, not surviving, and Cambridge Journals has found a way, as many competitive presses have, to do that. But I found it fun to work between journals and books, which is often a very difficult thing for presses to do. And the barrier between digital and print, they've been able to negotiate. So it's these sorts of things moving forward in a partnership, an entrepreneurial spirit, thinking outside the box, willing to look at taking some risks. I found that very delightful and really stimulating.